Hit record. Okay, it's now 6:30 PM. We're gonna call a meeting to order. We do have a quorum present and we have the agenda that has been sent to everyone via email. First order of business would be to review and approve the minutes of the previous meeting, which was January 31. Meeting minutes were sent to everyone via email. Is there a motion?
But when I wrote the minutes, and as the last meeting was a pretty confusing meeting, you sent me an email with some corrections, and I can go over those real quick.
Why don't you do that for everybody?
And the first correction was I actually omitted the fact that select board member John Morris joined the meeting for a short time, 4 minutes, and I didn't think it was important enough because he didn't say anything. So, but our chairman thought it should be mentioned, so he would like me to add select board member John Morris joined the meeting for a short time. So, and I think that is great. The next one was in when we were talking about air packs. Current replacement costs to be increased, et cetera, and then I said, as well as the expected price increase of 5%, and what was added to it was in April. That is good. And then the big one actually was when we talked about the current inflation cost, it was going to be increased from 696 to 1,000,002 for engine. Well, it was well, what it said was basically we were talking about thermal cameras, and it said current replacement cost of 2 cameras went from 14,000 to 22,000. Then squad 3, the current replacement cost was increased from 117,000 to 171,000. Chief Peters believes that the previous replacement cost was incorrectly stated on the plan. The proposal is to re-chassis the unit because it only has accumulated 11,000 miles. Engine 1 and current replacement cost to be increased from 696 to 1,022. And then Paul would like to suggest that we add, and I think that is right, and that we clarified a minute, but it was pretty unclear. And we say it was determined during the discussion that the plan did not include an update to the current replacement cost of engine 1 and 2 last year. Research subsequent to the meeting by Paul Schumann and Jesse Peters did not provide a reason as to why this information was missing. I would say that would clarify the matter quite a bit. Although the last sentence, research subsequent to the meeting by Paul Schumann and Jesse Peters, is not something that happened during the meeting, and by rights should not be in the minutes, but for clarification.
Well, when you read that, you said subsequent to the meeting, right? So after the meeting.
Research subsequent
to
the meeting. So well, so we should leave that in. So I would say that we leave the whole thing in.
It should clarify that we changed what was said at the meeting afterwards when Jesse and I talked to get clarification.
Right. And that was one thing I said. Matt Nielsen presented the benefit analysis rather than a cost. So I can make those changes. And
if you would, are you making a motion to amend the minutes?
Unless there are other changes.
Right. Are there any other changes to the minutes?
Then I'll make a motion to amend the minutes as I would state.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any members of the public that would like to be heard at this time? Seeing none, select board input. Andy, do you have anything from the select board?
Nothing huge. We did, yes, get notified. Oh,
Could you use it because we're on video and they won't be able to hear you?
yep, I forgot.
Sorry about that. It just dawned on me.
Just a little bit of news. We put in for a grant for water capacity study. We were awarded that grant, just found out yesterday. So the Economic Development and Sustainability Committee has been working on that. So, and the town planner applied for the grant, so we've got it, just to see what we are capable of up at the pump house.
So, you talking about the well or I'm not sure what.
What the aquifer capacity is for that area.
For the Pownell Community Water System?
Yeah, down here on Elmwood.
No, it's up here on,
Oh, it's up here now?
Yeah.
it
Okay.
always has been.
Oh, that's not the little spring there.
No,
Okay.
So it's something that's being done at the initiative of the Economic Development.
it is. So maybe something added to the plan in the future, not sure yet.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you, Andy. Next, we're going to go into department head presentation and Jesse's here to give us some updates from last discussion. And just before we get into that, give everybody a heads up that we need to get to our appropriation vote by the end of this evening, which means we're going to get into looking at the spreadsheet itself and hopefully doing some what if scenarios if we don't like what we see, and how we had changed that. So that hopefully will be the bulk of what we do tonight. But we got a couple of things to clear up first, starting with Jesse. So Jesse, you want to go ahead? Sure, please.
Jesse Peters, Fire Chief. So one of the things you asked me to come back with was what was gonna be the price increase on the air packs, because we weren't quite sure yet. And I got that information, 3.5% to 5%. Somewhere in there. They won't know until the day they actually,
And that was for the piece that was coming in April.
yes,
Okay,
that's when the price increase will take place. So by the time we go to town meeting, that price increase will already be baked in.
okay, so we had, okay. So your number in the spreadsheet was 104.3 plus 3.5% to 5%. Because yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Good. Okay, so in the model we're gonna show tonight, I already put in the 5%.
okay, I would probably leave it at 5.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
Okay, no, that's
go
good.
ahead, Ron.
It's good to hear.
I don't remember, were we looking at grants? One year we were looking at grants for the
We're looking at a grant this year. We're trying to write one right now.
rain, so.
The grant period's open right now. We won't know whether we receive the grant until after town meeting.
I meant that's why we were gonna word it up to, so that if we did get the grant.
Yeah.
We wouldn't.
Even if we get the grant, there's gonna be some cost sharing. So we'd be able to use that money for the cost sharing part and then give it back, whatever we don't use.
Right.
That good with the air pack one?
I'm good. Any questions?
The other thing you wanted me to check on was the radio dispatch equipment. That's a few years out.
Mhm.
I checked and we do own equipment at both the Libby Tower in Gray and at dispatch itself in Wyndham. So when that comes time to be replaced, we're gonna have to replace it.
Was that in the quote you gave us?
That's for the dispatch radio equipment. That's not due for another 5 years or so.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
That was not part of that quote at all.
for that 15,000.
Yeah, and that's gonna go to 20.
Okay, so it should go to 20 now.
Should go to 20 now because we're making that leap to digital. So that 15 would have been for analog equipment.
20K now.
Yeah.
And that includes the transition to digital.
And even 20,000.
Yeah, that's what she quoted me. She didn't run up a full quote because it was so far out. But she figured out what we have there and what we would need to replace it with digital. And
Right, and that would be anticipated to be refreshed in 2030,
yeah,
if I'm reading that right.
so that's just
Okay.
like 6 years out.
And so that would be at all the three locations that you mentioned, that would be all that equipment.
It would be only at the Libby Hill and at Wyndham Dispatch.
That would 20,000 cover all of it.
Yep. If we did it today. It's the wind.
And the third location, we don't own equipment or we do?
What's the third
I
location?
thought you mentioned three locations.
No, Rodney mentioned 3 locations.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't mention three, you
Okay.
mentioned three when you.
No, 2 locations.
Libby Hill and Dispatch.
Yeah.
Okay,
The tower at Libby Hill and the dispatch center in Wyndham.
Oh, I thought you mentioned three, okay.
okay. Gotcha.
Computer system?
Nope, that's the communications, the dispatch radio equipment. It's in your spreadsheet as dispatch radio
Right.
equipment.
Repeater systems, that's separate.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the equipment.
So right now, so the last month, we were saying the communication, the current replacement cost, we increased that from 25.3 to,
That's a different thing altogether.
Right here, young Peter, we're talking about the dispatch radio, it's 100 communications. There's communications in there.
That's the equipment we brought in like 3-4 years ago when we left Brunswick.
Yeah, 2017 or whatever. it was.
Right,
2018, whenever we moved over to Wyndham.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Any
then,
other-
what was the last thing?
I don't remember what the last thing was, to be
I
honest.
apologize, I left my notebook in the breezeway. I was
Well-
running out the door.
Let me see.
And you and I talking about so many things.
I know.
after the last Meeting.
How much of that 26,
26,312.
yeah, I'm gonna need for the
Right, and,
for the completion of the radio upgrade. The communications. upgrade.
right,
So I asked her to send me over a quote. I got about 10 grand, 11 grand in installation costs, things that we have to put into the trucks to make this work. And then I got another about 10, 11 grand in replacing the radios in the officers' vehicles. So I'm looking at like 22. But that's,
we have 26.
well, we have 26.
All right,
So I'd like to ask for the 26, and if I don't use it all, give it back.
all right, or if you find out before town meeting, well, you're not gonna find out before.
I won't,
Present,
because
right?
the installation process won't even begin till after town meeting.
All right, well, we would need it before our budget presentation in a couple weeks anyway, so, yeah, update us
to-
on that and our. Yeah, because that happens this year.
Mhm.
It'll work itself out in the plan, but just make sure we get updated. Cause I'll go to Becky at the after you purchase the equipment before next year's plan and you're
Mhm.
here. I'll try and get all the actuals from her, so we start off with the actuals, cause that is the current replacement cost,
Mhm.
and then we'll go forward from there.
Yep.
Okay,
That's
Any-
all- That's all I have.
okay. Any other questions for Jesse while he's here? This is your last chance till next year. All right. Great. Thank you very much for coming back, Jesse. I really appreciate it. So we need to make that dispatch equipment change now. Okay, and Rodney, you had a question?
No question.
Oh, from before.
I did have one more thing. And it's nice that Bo and you are in the same room. I'd like to set up a meeting after the presidential primary with you, Bo, me, and Becky, and sit down and look at funds that we want to invest and what we kind of get some recommendations on what we can safely invest.
Okay.
So be looking for an email.
Yep, okay, understand. Okay,
So this would be implementing the investment policy that we put in place
Correct.
recently? Okay, thanks.
Okay, the next item under department head presentations would be a vote to remove from the asset schedule the refurbishment of engine 2. That is something that's been completed for a few years now. It's in the plan as a 100-year item. The reason it's there is to make sure it doesn't show up in any of the future years that the plan is involved with, so
I have a comment.
certainly.
I think at one time we talked about leaving that in there with a 0, because if we decide to refurbish one of the other vehicles, it's already in there. And we don't need to go through the process of putting it back in again by us voting on and the selectmen voting on it. Because I would assume most likely we will refurbish another fire vehicle. Just that you hit. There we go.
Before I call on Jesse, if we leave it in there, then he can only refurbish engine 2.
Well, I think we should just change the name. I think.
If it's a different item, it has to go to the
I
select
think
board.
it would be much cleaner if you eliminated it and then.
And there's a practical reason. The person who manages the spreadsheet, right now, if this goes bigger than it is now in terms of the number of rows down, it becomes a significant effort to make that change.
Oh,
So
we
we have-
reached that point. I knew we would.
Well, we have one more free item left on this, on the spreadsheet. When we get there and the person who maintains the spreadsheet has no problem making that change, but would just not like to get there without good reason. Right, it's gonna be several hours worth of work because you have to not only just add a row on the front page. There's things that happen throughout that multi-page spreadsheet that all have to be manually checked for accuracy. And while it might be a fun thing to do on a snowy winter day, I
Make a motion, we remove it from the spreadsheet.
any discussion?
Made a good case.
Right. Are you all in favor? Okay. Did you now want to talk about, you had your hand up?
Do you want me to come back up to the microphone?
Yes, please.
I am in favor of putting a placeholder in there for refurbishment in case we have to refurbish another truck. I think it makes sense if we can keep these trucks going for as long as we can and get the most money we can out of them and most mileage we can out of them. I mean, we're really not beating them up, so I think it's important. And right now, we don't have to pay for the new emissions as long as we keep these trucks.
Right, and that's gonna be a big item as we've
Yeah,
talked.
it is. Like
I
Andy
think-
said, it's a maintenance nightmare for those engines
Right,
too.
and I think be happy to have a request for the refurbishment of a vehicle. If, you know, if we add it in, we have to go get select board approval. We need to do the analysis that generates that we are going to buy enough life out of that vehicle to make the investment worthwhile, like we did with engine 2.
Right.
No problem doing that. And if that means at that time we have to make the spreadsheet bigger, we'll make it bigger.
But you just gained another slot, so now you have two.
Right, now we'll have 2.
Question?
Yeah.
I think we should point out how far ahead we want this so that Jesse knows, you know, do want it 1 year in advance, 2, 3, when he wants to refurbish, so it doesn't come up a year before us. We discussed, you know, what time frame would we like to be looking at to get it on the schedule?
I mean, well, obviously, we want as much runway as we can get in terms of pushing, because essentially with these trucks, you're pushing out a bond issue. And if we can make now, but if you say, all right, I need 50,000 or 25,000 like we did last time, that means we've got to raise in the appropriation $25,000 that's not in the plan. So we either take it out of the reserve that we have now, or we increase the appropriation to do that. Now, if it's 1 year and we don't have enough in the reserve, then it's a $25,000 increase in the next appropriation. If you give us 5 years, then it's $5,000 a year until we get there. So that's really what Rodney's talking about. Now we've fortunately in the recent past have had times where the balance was sufficient enough, we could put things in there if they made sense and not have to worry about the appropriation. I think we'll see later tonight, maybe the balance isn't quite as robust as it has been, even though it might be within our guidelines.
And that would also affect our investment strategy if we get surprised with something and we've invested and we get a big surprise amount. So that would make a difference. In that.
Always want more runway than less runway. Okay, so I think we completed the vote on that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
We did.
thank you very much. Okay. All right, now we're gonna move over to working with the plant. And we'll see how much we can see off of that great big screen. And I will have to narrate and direct Teresa, who's gonna drive the computer to get us to some of the things or before we do that, let's go.
Turn off these lights because they glare on that.
Okay, let me do one item first. I forgot that this, in your agenda package, you have a spreadsheet, a PDF version of a spreadsheet that looks at replacement cost inflation. And if you want, we do have this on the computer. It's not set up. We could bring it up, but it's something we've looked at before, trying to take the replacement costs that we've been given over the years and calculate how much is the replacement going up for individual items and then compute a composite inflation rate from that. And a lot of items that we have, you can't do that with because we don't have sufficient data to do it. Or there's some anomaly in the data that you say, let's exclude it. For instance, if you look at fire trucks, right now, if you look at the last 5 years, they're going up about 12% a year. Jesse and I did talk about that since the last meeting, and there was a significant one-time increase for fire trucks, probably right around the beginning of the pandemic. And then the inflation rate after that is about half that rate, but it still throws off any calculations you might do using that data.
Is there, since those are bonded items, is there any way of pulling those separate from the inflation rate for the other item? I mean, I assume it's all lumped together.
It's all lumped. Let me finish, and I think you'll see how that comes out. We have one inflation rate in the plan. That's the way the plan's built. Now, what I did in your exhibit, it's in like a pinkish color, and the number has an X behind it. That X causes it to be kicked out of the analysis. So it's not included there. They do all happen to be bonded items, but, so we've taken them out of the development of a composite depreciation rate. Also, another example of something that doesn't work, the Mallon Hall parking lot, we got, updated information last meeting, that which led us to understand we were missing some information on the Mallon Hall parking lot. We only had the base coat included in the plan. We did not get the finished top coat when that was added about a year later. So that gets kicked out of the plan because we can't calculate an inflation rate on that. So anyway, building all of that together, as you can see, yields a weighted composite inflation index of about almost 6% since 2019, which is tried to get, out back past the pandemic period when the supply chain went crazy, which it's still crazy. But before that, so we have some confidence that we were looking at reasonable numbers. So those are the adjustments that have been made. You can see on the spreadsheet, the items that we can include. You can see the individual inflation rate for those items, which varies quite a bit. And the composite, all of that, and it's a weighted factor. So the bigger the item, the more influence it has on the total inflation rate, like dump trucks would have a bigger impact on computing inflation rate than a thermal camera. So that would suggest rather than the 4% that we are currently using as an inflation rate in our plan, it should be closer to 6%. Now, this, like everything else we're gonna do tonight, is we're using a lot of estimates to do estimates. A lot of projections to do further projections. So we have to keep that in mind, that what we're doing now is stimulating discussion using arithmetic. So don't believe it's real arithmetic that is based on, like 2 + 2 is 4. No, it's all, start with an estimate, make some estimates, and then recompute the estimate. We're gonna have to put some judgment, and does it make sense? Are we comfortable with what this suggests? And then go from there. So. Everybody clear on that, Rodney, question?
So are you asking us to change this now or just to think about it for next year? What are we doing?
I'm gonna ask you to change it tonight.
Change it
If
tonight.
you think 4% is too low, I'm gonna ask you to change it tonight. Probably in about 2 minutes. All right. So, what did I just do with that? I'm gonna move myself over to TV where I can actually read the numbers. And you can join me over there, as the audience has already done. Reese is gonna stay back here.
Yeah, I have to stay
while
here.
I explain what's going on.
Can you take the microphone with you so people watching can hear you? All righty, thank you.
Think the slides forward.
Slides forward.
Got
it.
There's a bunch of code back here, but I'm not sure.
You just have to remember to put this back so Becky doesn't know that we moved it. Okay.
You want one of these chairs or you?
Sit right here. Well, unfortunately, I'm gonna be right in front. Okay.
Is it okay to do the lights now?
Yes.
Thank you.
That one. We'll leave that one on. Get that. So, glare.
So this is the what if tab in the spreadsheet. And let me give you explanation of what's doing. I can't point on the screen because it doesn't work. It reflects up. So message to select board, please get some laser pointers that work. On the left-hand column are some of the major assumptions that we use in developing the plan. In the next column, which would be above the red dot, are the current plan values for those assumptions that the committee has agreed to. Yeah. Yeah, maybe you can use the pointer, Teresa. Yeah, now you're gonna have to answer the questions till you go through, just answer the, yeah. All right, you're gonna, just so you know, you're gonna get a lot of those questions every time we do something. So just go along for the ride and answer the questions. Okay. So in the highlighted column are the values that we've agreed on and if you'll point to it with the pointer, with the mouse, there's a plan and a what if section. In the pink area, we're in column E. That's the plan information. Those are the results of the plan using those assumptions. In years 1 through 10 is all we can see on the screen now. Below in the green box, it says what if. In a minute, we're going to put some information in there. And so the one thing I have added is in row 16 is year 5 smoothing, just to get us started. I put in an assumption that we have yet to agree to of $164,000 as the appropriation. That is just continuing the $4,000 increase per year progression that was already in the plan. The other thing I'll point out before we get started, down in row 26, down there, the target capital reserve balance, you'll remember in the past couple of years, we said our target is to have enough balance at the end of any year to buy a dump truck. That was at $262,000. Dump trucks are now $268,000. So just to let you know, we may consider changing that for tonight if you want to. So to see if you could slide over using the slider, Teresa. Yeah, right there. So what you'll see in the plan data, you'll see two end capital reserve balances highlighted in yellow with bold red numbers. That indicates that we are not meeting our requirement in terms of the ending capital balance. And the requirement is that we be 90% of our target. And if you scroll over a little bit more, so everybody knows that it's there, keep going. It gets quite a few. After year 15, we won't pay attention to it tonight because there's a relatively easy fix right now, and that is we are not allowing the plan to calculate or put in any appropriation if the calculated appropriation is 0 or less. So there's no automatic smoothing. So after year 15, our automatic smoothing runs out, and that's what we've set a 5% right now, annual smoothing from year 5 through 15. So when you get to that point, you'll see in year 16, the appropriation is 0. Well, we forced that because we said, no, you can't do that on your own. You have to wait for the committee. So if you were to change that and let the plan calculate what it should be, it'll fix a lot of that problem out on the right-hand side. So let's not worry about that for the moment. But we do have 2 indications in the year 11 and 12. We don't have enough in our capital reserve balance. Okay, so Teresa, if you could slide us back. So once we start making changes, the what if boxes will fill in with values and we can compare them to the actual plan as the current assumptions computes it. So I would suggest that 4%, based on what we've shown in the composite exhibit that we did. I did, after talking to Jesse about the fire engines last time, and we found that there was missing data from last year's plan. So we fixed that for the moment. I did find a site that, I feel bad talking with my back to you guys, but I did find a site that finances fire trucks. And not that I was looking for that, but I was trying to figure out how do you calculate inflation on a fire truck? Well, in reading through that site, I did find statement that said that company that does the financing is projecting 6 to 8% per year inflation on fire trucks. Pretty much in line with what Jesse had provided at last month's meeting. So that kind of adds to what I calculated in our cost replacement inflation number of just under 6%. So I think we need to make an adjustment. I think 4% is too low for the inflation factor. So I'm looking for suggestions, but just to show you how this works, Teresa, why don't you let's just try 6% in there and just hit enter. Say okay through the questions you're going to get. And the last one. So now we have information in our what if plan. And you can see that we have in years 1 through 10, we have 2 places where with this one change, our ending capital reserve balance does not meet our requirement. And remember, our requirement is still at the 262. It's not up to a current value of dump truck. That we can talk about when we get to it. So we need to fix that or see what it's going to take to fix that. So we have some idea. So the way to deal with that, since that's out past our years 1 through 5 smoothing that we do, which we do year by year, this is going to be affected by whatever we put in year 5. Because what we're doing is after year 5, we're smoothing on a set percentage every year. So if you remember, our assumption is years 6 through 15 is being done at 5%. So Teresa, let's just focus on changing the year 5 smoothing from the 164 that we had. Change it to 193,000. And walk through the questions again. If year 5 is at that level, then we fixed one of our problems, assuming a 6% inflation rate, but we haven't fixed both of our problems. So we need to do something else if we want to try. Rodney, you had a question.
Well, since we need to, I'm not comfortable with changing any numbers tonight and having this little small amount of time to talk about it for year 5. I mean, tonight we need to come up with an appropriation for this year. I would like to wait on year 5 smoothing until we have a couple of meetings to discuss it. Changing it by $30,000 in a short, trying to go quickly at this meeting, I don't think it's right.
Okay, let me explain where the 193 comes from. I cheated. I played with this many times since we last met. What?
Figured that we just came up with.
Right. 193 is a 6% per year adjustment over last year's appropriation.
Yeah, I
I-
can understand that. I just don't feel comfortable voting on it.
I appreciate that. We need to have an appropriation to the budget committee in less than 2 weeks.
Right, but.
So
that's
are you
only for
willing
this
to meet
year.
next week?
I mean, this is year 5 that we're discussing. And I don't think we need to put an amount in there when we're just talking about this year's appropriation.
Okay, let me, back. I appreciate what you're saying. I think it's a fair question. Let me finish walking through this because putting in this year's appropriation isn't going to fix the problem we have in the next 10 years.
Right, but I'm not
But I'm
feeling we need to fix it tonight.
But we don't even know what the problem is. I'm trying to show you what the problem is.
Okay, so
Okay.
you're not looking for anything voted on tonight then?
I will look for a vote on the appropriation for next year.
Okay, that's the only one we're discussing.
And we're trying to get to what should that be? Okay? Because I'm just tell you this, if we keep the progression going that we agreed to a couple of years ago, ain't gonna work, in my opinion.
Well, I've got no question on that.
But the only vote we're gonna take tonight is on year 1 appropriation.
Okay,
Okay? But I'm trying to show you how I get to what I think.
that's fine.
And what I'm just showing you, there's 2 reasons why I'm showing you this. To show you how this works and how we can use it. Because what I'm throwing up there is just, I made this up. You can make up something, Teresa can make up something, Jan Peter can make up something, and they'll be different. The question is, do they solve the issues that this is showing out there? And again, we're putting estimates and projections on estimates and projections going out 10 years. So let's get there. And if you don't like what you're seeing, that's fine. I think we want to go through the entire exercise because right now we're backing into year 1 appropriation by making sure that the point is, as you pointed out earlier, talking to Jesse, we need to start sooner rather than later to fix any problems we have in the plan. Because if we wait till later, it causes too much of a cliff for the taxpayer.
Right, I realize that. I just, you know, obviously we need to increase this year. I mean, we decreased it from what we'd planned on. We'd planned on around 160,000. And because we got that money from the surplus, we reduced it.
Right.
Last year, we reduced the amount. So I'm thinking.
Not last year, 2 years ago.
2 years ago, we reduced it. If we put it back to the 1.6, so you're gonna tell us what range we need.
I'm gonna walk you back to that, and this is just one scenario on how to get there. You may come up, I hope you come up with, and you come up with, and you come up with, and Kyler comes up with different ideas on how we get there. This is just me playing around, and I'm just showing you now what I got out of it and see if we can't get some other ideas. So we still have a problem indicated out in year 10. We don't have a ending capital reserve balance that meets our criteria for where we want it to be. And in fact, the criteria right now is below where we think it should be. So if you, a calculator. One of the things we do know, if you buy into that 6% is a better inflation rate than what we currently have in the plan, and our appropriation now is currently growing by less than 4% a year, that if your costs are going up by 6% and your revenue is only going up by 4%, you eventually lose that game. So if we come back to now that we know where year 5 is, as a way to help years, the out years, let's try and get to, all right, how much help can we get from years 1 through 4 with this problem? Because increasing that appropriation is hopefully going to carry through. So if we take 144 was last year's appropriation. If we make year 1 3, so 153, that's a 6% increase. So that costs are going up 6, bring our revenue up 6. And unfortunately, you have to go, if you had a better programmer, you wouldn't have to go through every question every time. All right. Year 2 would be 162. And again, this is 6% inflation in cost, 6% of inflation in revenue. So 172 for the next one, year 3. And then 182 for the last one. Yes. So that gets us closer, but we still haven't made that problem go away. It's at 381,000 is our ending balance in year 10. 443.
Paul, question.
Hang on a minute. We're trying to get to 399 would be our target. That would be 90% of the ending balance target. Rodney, your
Your
question.
inflation rate on the screen is back to 4%. Is the screen calculated at 4% or 6%?
6. It's in orange. See the orange number there in 6?
Oh, 6, okay, in the orange.
So we entered that as a,
What if, okay.
let's do it as a what if. All right, so what we've done, we've changed the plan by, we've changed 4% to 6% for the inflation rate on our costs. And now what we've done is we've, starting from last year, added 6% each year to the appropriation. That cured one problem, got us closer on the second problem, didn't solve that. So the only way right now to solve that is lower the inflation, if you think inflation should be lower, or increase the appropriation. in this case, or, no, there is one other way.
We're making
Well-
interest on the funds.
This does include a certain amount of interest.
It does?
Yes. The second line, interest rate 2.43%,
You've added that to the formula?
that's built into the present value calculations. So it assumes that the balance that's in the capital reserve account is getting that much interest. The investment that Bo mentioned or Andy mentioned is to do something beyond that. If we go down to the additional smoothing, Teresa, there we have a smoothing of 5% growth in appropriation. Well, if we've already said inflation's at 6 and below 6, we're not accumulating enough money to cover the inflation. Let's just try that at 6% and see what happens there. And when we do that, the problem in year 10 goes away. Pardon me? Oh, did it? I thought they were all green when I was looking this way. That I don't understand.
You have to put a percentage in.
On the interest, I wrote,
Under the orange.
2.4%.
2.4 on one side, you have to put something on the other.
no, if it's blank, that means we're using what's in the plan. It's already, yeah, the top part, the top lines. Yeah, okay. Through year 10, we fixed that one. We got more problems down the road. All right, I thought you were, I would turn around and looked, I hadn't seen you move it. And I thought, how did it go the other way?
I can see
Sir.
that. I can see yellow.
You propose inflation rate of 5.96%. This is composed over 5.19 to 24.
Yes,
So you go back, in 19, the inflation rate, 9. This is basically, so it's. Get five,
well, in that composite, fire trucks are not included. If you look on the sheet,
Here in bonding and
those pink numbers are not included. No, we're coming forward. We're coming from 19,
Yeah, so you go back to 19.
right,
So you include inflation rates that were quite a bit higher.
quite a bit higher, yeah.
Inflation rates
Right.
are Still.
Well, for fire trucks, I'm not so sure. I mean, based on on the one company I looked at that is financing fire trucks, they're saying project 6 to 8% inflation going forward. Our fire chief came in last month and said his contact on fire trucks is saying 6% going forward. That's just the fire truck.
Anything else? Pleasure. I'm not saying this, right, 4%, and I definitely think that we should go up 4%.
I don't know that 6% is right.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's using the actual cost in our plans from 2019 to February of this year. This is what we are including in our plan. So that's the compound annual growth rate that we are seeing in the numbers that we could use. Because in some cases, we've got data that makes no sense, so we throw it out. We don't include that where we know it's wrong. We had, like the fire trucks, we know we can't include it for that 5-year period because there's some things going on there that for a 5-year period wouldn't be appropriate to put in a composite. Because one, the inflation rate is so high for that 5-year period for fire trucks. And the fire trucks are so huge relative to all of the assets that we'd be talking about. It would throw your 6% up closer to 12. Rodney.
I don't have a problem with this year's appropriation to go with 150,000 because it's still I mean, I think we just say things were looking good. We went from 160,000 down to 144,000. You know, we go back up to 150. It's not an outrageous increase. We had decreased it. We've just got to go back to a more reasonable figure. I'm comfortable, and the 6%, we can always change it next year. We're going to be looking at it again in November. And we could change it back again. I'm happy with going with 150,000 this year,
So-
with 6% interest rate. And, you know, boost it right up to 150,000. We reduced it and we made a mistake when we reduced it. We couldn't see that, you know, we didn't know what was coming down.
Well,
the road.
we didn't know the inflation was coming and the supply chain issues that are driving a lot of that inflation.
I don't think we're gonna have any static putting it back up to 150 this year.
But okay, I'm not worried about static. I'm worried about, what I would be worried about is the explanation we're going to give to our audience at the budget committee and the select board as to why that number. Is
Well, I
it-
think what I just said is that.
So you're saying gut feel? It feels
Well,
good.
That's my feeling. I mean, that's what I gotta go on, is that we reduced it. Just show them 3 years ago what we projected and we reduced it because we got 200,000 from the surplus. And the inflation wasn't as rampant on the supply chain. And we don't have that gift that we got before. That was the reason we reduced it. It's because they gave us 200,000 plus things were looking good with the supply chain. So I think that's our explanation right there.
Okay, any other comments? What?
Undesignated fund balance.
That's what he's talking about, the gift. That you guys,
That gift, and we don't have that, so we put it back up to 150.
What if we change the inflation to 5.5?
okay, let's try that.
Change your 1 to 150?
Well, let's first look at what this gave us. So 5.5 still leaves us with at least through year 10. We're looking pretty good in terms of our ending balance.
I've got no problem with 6%. I'm not asking to reduce that.
Oh, well, let's follow her. You talk, now Teresa's talking.
Yeah,
Oh,
Try to play around with it because we're not, I mean, no one knows what the inflation rate actually is. We're just taking a dart.
we're taking projections on projections to try and give us something to talk about.
That is high. So we'll take it down half a point.
Sure, let's see where we get to.
Yeah.
So that gives us at least through year 10, we're still looking good on that part. We,
how about now we try putting 150,000 in year one, like Teresa
all
said.
right, then you have to change all of them, or do you?
The percentage.
Oh,
So,
it's not gonna calculate it for us. Oh, all right.
that would be a 4% change over last year. So we should, I mean, so do you want to see all of them changed?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so let's go 150. And 156. $162. $169. $175. Okay, so that gets us most of the way there. Year 10 has some issues. 312, we're trying to get to 399. So there's ways to manipulate the numbers. Again, remember, we're just playing games right now, trying to figure out, stimulate the discussion about where we might put things.
I think, my opinion is we go no less than 150 for our appropriation request.
Now, all right, so this also has a 6% increase in the appropriation starting in year 6. Change that to 5.5, just to see what that does. Not happy with that one. That didn't change, Teresa. Oh. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, so that cell needs to be fixed, so it does 0.5%. Andy, you had a question?
What was the appropriation from that undesignated balance?
200,000? Yes.
That's why we reduced it, was because when we put that 200,000 in, we said, well, you know, we added that, we need to reduce, we shouldn't be asking for the full amount when we just got a $200,000 gain. So now we realize that $200,000 gain has been offset already.
Not sure you should reduce your appropriation.
So next time, we'll remember that next time.
Yeah.
We will. I mean, I think if we go back up to 100, we had reduced it from 160,000, I think going back up to 150.
Well, we got 200,000 transferred in twice. Well, it was not last year, I think it was the year before.
Twice it's happened.
And it's happened twice, and the second time we reduced because we had more money. The plan suggested that given the inflation rate and what we were looking at then, that we could knock some of that appropriation off, keep it smooth there. But that's not the reality we face now with the way the replacement costs are coming in. Did you have a question, Bo? Okay.
Looked at it, adding another 200,000. Designated, if we did that, our undesignated fund balance is up over 2 million.
Okay, Teresa, do you see where that what if value can be entered down below? It says additional transfer to capital reserve down, right there. Yeah. Put 200. The bid is 200 right now by Andy O'Brien. Yeah. All right, that takes care of this. Yeah, just slide out to the right a little bit. I mean, that should take care of, well, we still got a problem in years 11 and 12.
But that's with 144,000.
No, that's with 150,000.
Oh, I thought you,
Everything, if it's in orange, then it's included in the what if.
okay.
Yes. So let's take the 200 out for now. Okay, slide it back to the left. Yeah. Yes, we do. They seem to come in herds, like every few years. There's like 3 years of fairly significant expenditures, then it drops to zero for a year or two, and then the herd comes back again. Which maybe isn't a bad idea. Rather than having it all in 1 or 2 years, we're spreading it out somewhat.
What year is that, the big amount comes in? We're having a,
5, 6, and 7, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are significant expenditure years.
6, 7, and 8, so that would be 2030, 2031, somewhere in there.
And then, and this is just the appropriation part, not the bonding. Okay, any other things that people would like to see changed in terms of the assumptions here? You get an idea how things are working.
And I think we have to go above 150. Take that up again, maybe not all the way up to 153. Something, because this is a one.
Right. So, I think it shows that our original assumptions as a group don't work like we want them to. So we need to change something. What are the somethings? Anybody else have any suggestion on what we might want to see before we?
I would keep an inflation index.
Yeah.
Is there any objection to keeping a 6% inflation rate? Then should we have a motion? Then I think we should have a motion then to reset the assumption for inflation at 6%. Would somebody want to make that motion?
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous there. Okay.
Paul,
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at the expenditure plan, and one of the big ones is the loader backhoe. And now that we have a front end loader and a wheeled excavator, I'm wondering if, the life's time of that, it might extend 15. I'm just saying that I think maybe this won't be as bad as we think when we actually get into closer to that time, because I think some of these things may last longer. I'm just throwing that out there. What's that?
Already extended the life of that.
Oh, we did?
Yes, we did when we got the front end loader.
Oh, we extended it
We went
back.
from like 10 or 12 to 15. Is it at 15 now, I think?
15 now.
Yeah. So that, but those are,
I know, I'm just looking.
those are good questions for when we have our public works back in the room. We also, another thing that we haven't mentioned here, but we upgraded the excavator to a wheeled excavator and we added an attachment. There's $80,000 that was not in the plan before this year. That is having an effect on this. We did it for good reason. We felt it was valuable to the town, but that's certainly something we could say, oops, maybe not now. Well, it was 2027. We haven't got there yet, but it's certainly, it's reflected in the next 3 years. So there's another option. So
And that was added this year.
we may,
Yes.
we changed that this year based on Matt made the request. We did the evaluation and agreed with him that it made sense to do for services to the town.
The question behind.
Question, Andy?
Do we know what our actual interest rate is right now without investing or anything?
On that account is 2.43%. That's from Becky. That's what it was in September or in the fall.
Thinking about time, I'm suggesting 155,000 then for year one. I mean, I think it's time to start throwing numbers out just so we,
You need to make a motion.
I make a motion, we set the appropriation for next year for 155,000.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Isn't that 150 now?
Yep.
Oh, you said 155. I thought you said one, okay.
Well, yeah.
All right.
What was the original?
140 something.
148, like, put the one, I'd put it in the exercise. Put in the 155, that's the motion. Let's see what the motion does. Now, in this case, only year one is changing unless we decide to carry through a change. Well, that's a question I'm putting to the table. Is it people want to see that, or do you want to? Does anybody need to see changing years 2 through 5? Okay, then what's 144, the 155 is an 8% increase, so 155. Next one will be 167.
You're going up that same 8% each year.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't you increase it by 6% after that original number?
Is that what you would prefer?
Well, if we start at that and then our inflation rate is 6%, you wouldn't keep going 8, would you? You said it's 8 over last year.
Well, I was going to, because that's what we've done in every other exercise. I'll do whatever anybody wants to see.
Well, I think after that one time, we'd go to 6%,
Okay, so 150, let's go back, Teresa.
155.
155. 164. $174. 185. 196. So leave the motion and second, okay with leaving the 6,
Yep.
so we've changed the whole progression.
Then it's 5.5.
Yes,
And then after years, it's
still 6, stays at 6. So
I think we stay with 6 until things change.
we have, in this scenario that we're looking at on the TV, we have a 6% inflation rate. We have an 8% increase over last year's appropriation for year 1, then a 6% increase through year 5, and a 6% smoothing for the next 10 years. After that, so that's the assumptions we have in the. All right, and so 11 and 12, we still have a problem. So Andy now has a target for how he should invest the excess funds.
Yeah, back in 7 years.
Right, it's another herd coming through type of thing, yep. So we'd have to.
Don't have much of a break in between.
No, so we'd have to, somewheres along the line, we gotta fix that either through a transfer, which we've gone that well a couple times. I know there were other things happening in town. We ought to try and stay away from that one if we can. And the only other way to fix it is sharper pencils on the cost replacements, replacement cost stuff, and pushing things out. Yes. Jesse.
If you took one of the expenditures and moved it from like year 8 into 9 or 10 into 9, would that change? Would that change those numbers?
Yes, but probably not enough,
No.
right? I mean, we're getting there. I mean,
If you go backwards, if you replace it early, it's gonna screw you up even more.
right.
If you go further off.
But we're still, I mean, in year 11, we're quite a bit under where we need to be and we're still, I mean, we're quite a bit in year 12. So we would have to start marching forward soon. Again, we need a lot of runway if we're going to do that in small increments. The other thing, which is inherent in the plan, is that the way we do it with our department heads, they're pretty much going out and getting dealer prices. Typically, dealer prices are going to be higher than bidding at the time of purchase. We hope that's what's gonna happen. But we can't build that into the plan because we don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna make bid for our planning purpose.
They are writing bids now, but, yeah. 5 years from now, when you go out to get that item, you're gonna go to bid and you're hopefully gonna get a sharper pencil than you have now. When you're saying 5 years from now, I'm not gonna buy this for 5 years, but tell me what it's gonna cost if I bought it today. And I'm sure Jesse does this every year for us, and the guy says, are you back again? Yeah.
Can be asked, Jesse, Jesse. Why do you think that the inflation rate on fire trucks is, and how much higher is it than, say, the inflation rates on regular trucks? Do you know?
So he told me that since COVID, since 2020, fire trucks have gone up 35%.
But why fire trucks and not? trucks?
So the first thing that hit us was a steel shortage. That was the first thing that hit them. I don't know why. And then there was there's a lot of computer chips in fire trucks. So the computer chip shortage that we had during COVID affected it.
There are a lot of-
And there was there was a 50% jump in engines in
Because those increases you would also have as well if you have a regular fleet of trucks, you have almost the same increase.
Those trucks have gone up that, yeah.
Computer
Well,
chips
we've
and
seen-
other battery insights. You have steel, and those are the facts. So I agree with the increases that we made, but I'm still a little leery on the exponential increases of estimates of fire trucks. I don't believe him, I believe him, but I'm skeptical.
Well, you're
Andy,
welcome to call him and ask.
Well, and the reason his guy's saying fire trucks is because he's a fire truck guy.
Yeah.
So Andy,
One other driver is the NFPA. They come out with new rules, what you have to
Mhm.
have in the truck. It's, to me, a terrorist organization, but
right, I mean, when I was doing my research after talking to Jesse.
Yeah.
Jesse mentioned $100,000 increase just for diesel in fire trucks. I'm not sure I'm on board with that yet, but Trucking News would tell you that it's 25 to 30,000 for just trucks because of the new environmental.
It'd be the same for trucks, fire.
Right.
Trucks.
Truck, right. But that's what they were saying, and that was the articles that were written a year ago when the regs came out, and that hits in 2027. Bo, you had a question?
Yeah, Jesse,
Yeah.
are the projections on the costs, are those based on fire trucks to fit our existing facility? Or future
They're
facilities?
replacements of exactly what we have.
And and the increment of buying trucks that fit our existing building versus a standard fire truck is what? What's the differential?
Well, like I said, we'd be able to buy one coming off the rack, coming off the lot, but you better be ready to buy it when it's ready.
You were talking about 20% difference?
I don't know.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Do you have to leave?
no, we're just getting way off task. I mean, we've
Well-
got an amendment, we're talking about stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with this year's appropriation.
Okay, but
I'm just saying.
I'm gonna finish the questions all right?
Yeah,
You're all right with that?
yeah, I'm just saying we're getting,
But we're struggling with the inflation rate.
right, but
Yeah, I'm done.
Andy, did you have something?
no.
Did you get your question answered?
I'm good.
we have a motion before us. I move the motion that we take a vote now, if we can.
All right, Rodney would like us to vote now. The motion was $155,000 in year one. And that would be what we would take to the budget committee. Is there any other discussion?
And
Something.
that should be zero transfer from.
Yes, but if you're looking to park money someplace from surplus that you don't know where to put it, you have some friends in this. You have
We
some
can't
friends in
put
this
into
room.
Our budget till it's offered, so that's without it right now.
So, yeah, there's nothing, well, in this motion, there's nothing regarding transfer from surplus. So, and we have a second for that. I'm not hearing any other discussion. Is there,
We already have the motion.
we already have the
Yeah, that's what We're
motion.
voting on now. We're back to voting on it now.
Okay.
155,000. Yeah, it went
All
everywhere.
right, Rodney, that's enough.
Well, I'm
I'm
sorry,
telling
but
you, as-
I moved the motion so we
And-
can do this.
And I'm just saying, let the group talk. This is a tough decision.
Right, but Paul,
If
we
you
were
have- if
way
you
off-
ha-
we were way off the motion.
You're
When you
at-
have a motion, you
you-
have to discuss. the
You are
motion.
correct. If you have to leave, just excuse yourself and
I
that's fine.
don't have to, but I'm asking that we vote. Thank you.
Point of
I'm-
order
I'm
on
done.
your, point of order on your part. I appreciate that and I respect that. So we have a motion, we have a second. There's no further discussion. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. Any other questions about the model or the changes that we've made? That's all we have to do now.
Right.
When you, s-
Next year's year.
when, so the only, yeah, so next year when you see this, we voted to change the inflation rate to 6%. It'll come back in with 6%. You'll see the 155 in year one. Everything else will go back to what the plan had in the other column.
We have anything else on the agenda? I make a motion, we adjourn.
You like to sit down first? Like
Fine.
to sit down and take a look at the agenda and see if there's anything else on the agenda.
Thank you.
There will.
No, no, Paul, I'm waiting. I'm all set. I don't have to go anywhere. Okay.
There will be a presentation for the budget committee on Monday, March 11th. You're welcome to come to that. We'll be there.
What time is that?
Well, that
6:30?
will depend on, they've been starting at 6:30, but it's a joint select board meeting as well, and they're often workshop beforehand or not. So it could be, they often start a workshop at 5:30, go into executive session at 6, and this past Monday, we started at 6:30.
So 6:30 would be a good time to get there for, and I know you have other presenters.
And I think that that would be a good time to be there, and if that time changes based on the select board's agenda, we'll try to get the word out. It's often not known until.
Okay.
So,
I don't believe it will be there'll be a workshop. There may be a workshop with the town planner ahead of time, but
Okay, but
plan on 6:30.
6:30. Okay, so 6:30 is the time for us to get there. I will be there. I will make a PowerPoint presentation, not this presentation, but something that hopefully will be easier to see and highlights the efforts of the committee in developing a plan to serve the town going forward and also the appropriation request for next year. The next regular committee meeting would be the last Wednesday in March would be March 27th. Is there anything else to come before the committee? Oh,
once you have finished updating your model, ahead of your presentation, could you email me the model? I'd like to, with your permission, share it with the budget committee members so that they have a chance to just kind of look behind the numbers a bit.
sure, I will.
Your presentation is not going to be the model itself.
It will not be the model. I'll pull pieces out so that you can see what's happening, but I think that's too difficult to present it's too difficult to read from way back here for the budget committee. I don't know where you're gonna be anyway, but if you're in this room, it's hard, I think, to follow that.
We will be in this room, and part of my reasoning is that I'm just trying to educate some folks on it.
I'll try and have that to you by the weekend.
That'd be great.
and we'll go from there. Okay, now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor?